In this modern era, money has gotten a new definition. It's not just about earning and saving nowadays. With the birth of digitization, wealth management has gotten a new avatar, and this has intrigued a lot of the population to reimagine and tweak traditional financial concepts. How is this making an impact on everyone's life? Welcome, everyone, to the evening where we discuss all things fintech and decode everything on modern day finance and wealth. I am your host, Glissandra Helens. So, before jumping in, we would first like to introduce Tether. So, who are we? In a nutshell, we are fintech enthusiasts, but there's more. Tether was conceived by like minded individuals with backgrounds in financial services ecosystems. In addition to being a converging point for all things fintech, Tether is a space to learn and grow. The community also functions as an open forum where participants can reach out to the whole community bigger. Whether you're a fintech startup or looking for investors or enthusiasts wanting to stay updated with the latest in the fintech world, Tether is the place to be. Presenting to you all a small glimpse of Tether through a video.
The strength of the wolf is the strength of the pack. The strength of the pack is the strength of the wolf. Since our founding, M2P has wanted to give back to the community we grew from, which led to the birth of Tether. Tether is a community for like-minded people from across the globe. This includes startup founders, fintech professionals, students, and enthusiasts. Tether, with thousands of members like you, will act as a catalyst in the growth of the fintech industry. Tether also acts as an open forum where participants can reach out to industry experts, learn, and grow. You can achieve mentorship from industry leaders, mentorship for funding, an opportunity to network with peers, and access to a world of events apart from a host of services. Join your peers today. Grow together, tether together.
Log on to tether.community to become a member. The link is now available on the chat section of the screen. Not only globally, but in India as well. Multiple forces in the field are shifting client expectations, innovative technologies, and disruptive operation models. India is in its exciting phase, and it is the right time to adapt to the changing needs in our industry. As we move towards the journey of becoming a $1 billion economy, the tech industry will definitely play a crucial role. To throw some light onto the future and upcoming trends in wealth tech, we have Mr. Puneet Gupta. Mr. Puneet Gupta is the co-founder at Kaleidofin, a fintech platform that propels underbanked customers towards meeting their real-life goals and providing intuitive, tailored financial solutions. He believes that the power of technology can be harnessed to amplify the role financial that collectively reach out to over 20 million customers. Prior to setting up Kaleidofin, Puneet was also a co-founder at the IFMR Trust Group, now Dwara Trust and Northern Arc Capital. He currently serves on the investment committee at the incubation cell at IIT Madras. A hearty welcome, Mr. Puneet Gupta.
Thank you so much, Cassandra. Pleasure to meet you.
A quick note to the audience. Any questions you might have for the speaker, please share them on the Q&A section.
Thanks everybody for joining me today. I'm going to use a short presentation to be able to take you through some of my thoughts. And hopefully, I should be able to do justice to what Glissandra said about what I'm going to do here. So looking forward to this. There are lots of different kinds of businesses in the area of finance and wealth. I'm going to talk a little bit about the theory of what are the kind of segments here and what are some of the opportunities which extremely. So if you can see my screen, the question really that I'm going to talk about a little bit management. And as some of you would have experienced it already, you would have heard the number of times in the past. Uh, idea of wealth management is to make sure that the money that you have to work for you. The idea is to the moment you look at that statement, it straight away presupposes the fact that there is wealth. So that's actually indeed the starting point. So for a very large number of cases, already a certain kind of buffer. What do we do with that buffer? How do we make sure that that buffer starts to work? Again, different business. But I would say that unless and until you have got a stage of accumulating something around 50 million rupees or opportunities that are available to you in terms of looking at your management is pretty limited. So wealth management does kick in once you have built a certain kind of largely speaking on financial planning actually much simpler. Basically, is that how your client or your own self meet their financial goals. There is no presupposition of wealth here, so you could start. The idea is goals that you want to meet. What can be done in the area of finance? Financial planning is relevant for everybody, including a person who's already in the wealth management category. And this is something that universally it has a demand. And therefore, if you were to look at the entire gamut between wealth management and financial planning, we practically are going or ideally both of these services at some point of time in life. Now, before I get any further, I wanted to talk a little bit about what is finance. I think one of the big things that is often confused when we talk about finance is something that has no clear shape of when we keep talking about finance product. Finance is equivalent to savings, investments, insurance, and whatever else. Uh, has three different functions that the first function of finance is to help you move resources. Which means that today you want to, let's say, buy a car. You don't have the money today, but you're earning. So you borrow money from your by taking a loan today and car today. So in effect, you brought future income where you defer the decision to buy a car and you take it to the future. Loans, savings, investments all fall under moving resources across time. Is moving resources across states of the world. The world has a set of good. So a product like a health insurance, for example, helps you move across these two states. Or think about pension, which is that today you're earning. So to a state when you will no longer be earning. Across various states. To be able to move resources across people and locations. And this is basically all remittances. And if you basically put out all financial services, effectively at the core of finance are these basic things. To a little bit to say that offering a customer pension plan. This particular slide very clearly does not give you a good sense of what it is. Let's start. I think as a nation, to say that doesn't need, does the user need money today? Will you money for and continue to earn tomorrow? Does the customer need to plan for a situation where there will be no cash in the future? And that should already give you a planning for a particular household. Now, again, coming back, finance is a completely derived demand product. I don't know of a sole about buying financial products. I've seen people get very excited about buying sunglasses, shoes, and pictures. Doesn't give that. So finance gets its demand from the demand of a certain goal. And therefore, as we start to think about finance, it's very, very important to get down to the customer level to understand what is it extremely well. And then we use the power of technology and AI to create the right kind of financial for them. I use working on this is called it's a Hindi rising star. Your rising star. Parents are thinking about making sure that their kid will have enough money. What Sitara does is it gets parents to say, why don't you start saving towards your so they're encouraged to helps them decide where to put this money, which is what is the risk that they can take, and which investment is perhaps the best for them to invest in. What we also tell the parents is that if you continue, then if something happens of let's say death, disability, or accident, your now what which is life insurance, accident insurance, and disability insurance. But by making it into a feature of a Bharta Sitara, we have removed the you have these three kinds of insurance without ever using the there. Uh, and what we also realize is that some parents might have, let's say, started saving too late. Or some parents might have thought that it is going to cost them 200,000 rupees to get to their kids' education, but it costs 300,000 rupees. There's money. At the time of the goal of the customer, where the kid of the customer needs the cash, we can and this can be done because of the data that we had on saving. We can actually use it to predict some part of credit underwriting for the customer. Now, in theory, what is insurance and a credit product all rolled into one. And I think that's really the kind of finance that we're evolving in. And that's really the kind of stuff that and you see many, many different kinds of entities today who are all trying to be a part of this overall finance value chain. I have this slide. I'm not going to go too much into details of this, but you'll see of wealth or largely if I were which are kind of operating today. You have entities in the personal finance space which help you track expenses, help you buy mutual funds, insurance, stocks. Then you have brokerage companies, online brokerage companies. You have entities which can give you recommendations, create nice bundles for you when it comes to stocks. You have currency and commodity trading, cryptocurrency trade, and e-gold are the form of investment tracking, where you can look at portfolio tracking, robo advisory service. This is not in the full category of success. We have a whole new world there, which is just number of entities out there, which are also looking at comparison of different kinds of financial services. Then I want to touch on the opportunity set here. What is that makes this entire market extremely exciting? I do see such a huge plethora of entities and such a huge diversity in the markets. I think one simple thing that we have in our favor is that when you have 1.35 billion people in the country, a very small demand by everybody, demand for any service that you can imagine. And we segment of population now in absolute terms, which is also engaged in the formal sector today. This is a segment which uses smartphones, accounts, has a high disposable income. Basically, to, now let's think about the report which expects that the market in India for some of these services that we're talking about expected to triple from around $20 billion in 2022 to around $63 billion in 2025. And that's a very short 5-year time span. And this is the kind of growth that you don't typically see in many sectors out there. We we expect the numbers to become 3x here. So the market is not growing only on account of the same users doing more. The market is actually growing on account of new users. Market and the fact that number of users and statistics in terms of the growth of ultra high net worth individuals, people who have more than $30 million in terms of their net worth. A very large number of them live in Bangalore, and Bangalore has the fastest number of growth of such individuals. But that starts to investments. We've started to see growth in number of team counts, but at the end of the day, if you see the numbers that we're talking about, we are talking about 138 mutual funds, and there are many people who are more than 88 years of my own. The number of customers who are investing is we believe that only 2% of the population of India invests. We have under 2% of the population which is tax paying, but this is a population that is increasing on an annual basis. The growth of the mutual fund industry itself, if you were to look at those numbers, we grew from 3.26 trillion to so lakh crores in 2007, and now that number stands at 38.42 lakh crores. That's a growth of almost 12x. Automatically kind of starts to translate into a very large market. Overall proportion that in terms, but in terms of demographics, I'm not going to get too much into it. I think we all know the India demographic story. This is one segment that is working with us. But the big transition that has happened actually is over the we found that internet penetration in India has kind of increased to tier 2. even today, if you were to look at stock markets, people will tell you Ahmedabad and Mumbai represent the two cities itself the largest markets in this country. There is this entire population segment which is out there serviced. At a station where out of 1.35 billion, we know that we have around 100 crore mobile connections or 800 million people are people who are currently engaged in the informal sector. These are customers who cannot produce salary slips, not customers and we have 400 million phones, and jumping very for by the time I put them in the presentation, this 400 might have become 450. But that is also very exciting that these numbers are really growing every single day. So we have 400 plus mobile data connections. Again, these are not users. Let me carry two SIMs and one data card. So I'm 3 out of the 400 million here. We still have around at least 30 to 35 crore people have access. The formal segment, all keep the tax paying segment, this is large which is investing in stocks, in the mutual fund markets, is only a 120 million number. That's around 12 crores. So we currently are looking at roughly all of the population participate in this particular segment. And if we just found this on this customer segment, it just opens an entirely new world of customers that are possible. Everything that is working and some that of course is work in progress where we are seeing a lot more work that to customers who are users of platforms is less the UX is, and the UX is becoming easier and easier to make investments in the stock market or in the mutual fund market, or to just simply open, let's say, a demat account or a mutual fund folio is far easier today than what it ever was. And I just would say that this is one place where we've hit the ball out of the park. And this has also created a little bit of that entire thing to say that the bar now to be able to get a scene. While we keep hearing around the fact that don't share your OTPs, and there are people who every day get cheated. But at the end of the day, I would say that happen the way you use right now, even to let's say invest in stocks, they use to make payments out of your bank accounts. The security of that is people to the banking system. That is fintech companies. I will now make a payment digitally, which in the past was people are always thinking about, does this entity have any kind of a certification? I don't know anything about saying that, is there a 128-bit security? It's just there is a very, very high trust. Today, you know that if you use an app to the and you don't have a password. I think which create a lot of trust. But at the same time, it's significantly low recommendation and cross sell. People believe that if I'm being and I think over a period of time, that's a place where a lot of us need to work. Everybody the fact that personalized experience, and I think that this is a place where as more countries start to work personalized, just increase the efficacy of platform will just go through the roof. And I would say that if there's a way to build up and transition to customers, this is going to be super critical. Actually allows people to transition from personal finance space to wealth space, even if the point that I am personally very excited about is that you actually cover every single customer. Um, and then this part is the product design. A lot of the work that we're seeing is in distribution of what exists. We have seen very limited work in some interesting work that is coverage initial companies. We're starting to hear some new product design which didn't used to exist in the past. We haven't seen as much in space buying crypto. I would say that it's actually here in this. Hopefully that's going to change. Um, the biggest those are those some of these sort these are kind of unsolvable problems. One of the big challenges that you end up facing is around complex KYCs. It's just I would say that I could actually speak about uh, there are lots of market distortions, especially if you're a young company trying to find your way out there. There are many well-funded organizations out there who are equity for customer acquisition. And it's in variety of ways. It's also impacting customer behavior. Customers associate newer entities with the fact that there will be schemes, there will be promotions, and but the problem with that kind of distortion is that the customer is not yours even after you acquire them. Customer by bleeding, and they, therefore, what is value prop? Stop looking for those discounts and see value coming from the work. Uh, such as finance, I would say that there is no real easy way out of these, but the industry does have solutions. There are lots of licenses that might be, and we have limited sandbox capabilities, which basically means that the process is also for innovation, and that's where when you end up doing something like this, it's actually very exciting. Uh, One which I'm kind of bringing on in the last is the entire thing um, and the continue from entities is the fact that the customer is just not willing for the venues are and I would say in the long run, this is not work that is being done to educate the customer in this regard to say that the cost that you pay could actually be very cost. You actually save money. What you end up paying hidden transaction charges is significantly higher. But unfortunately, customer to pay easily it does not exist. For every one entity which is trying to get the customer to pay, there are three others who are very happy to advertise that not only are their services free, usage based incentive, and that of course makes the challenge for monetization extremely hard. Um, I didn't want to leave us on a glim note because honestly, this is indeed a very exciting industry. Um, with all its challenges, with all the roadblocks, the kind of possibilities here are very exciting. Um, the power of technology kind of helps to unleash a lot of the challenges that you're seeing there. One is just sheer reach. We talked about the number of people who are smartphone users, and we know the number of people who potentially have smartphones but have never really made um, kind of an investment or have not used financial services the way we'd like them to be used. And to my mind, the reach that is offered by this platform far outweighs everything else. So that's kind of one most overarching thing there. The second thing is that the use of technology completely obviates the need for building very high process-based organization. We started with a team of 7 people in our operations team 3 years back. Today we have 1.8 million customers, and we have 6 people in the operations team, and we didn't even need the 7%. And these 6 people have been put, largely speaking, to make sure that everything is happening. It's not that they have to do a lot of day-to-day work, and that kind of brings down the cost to serve extremely dramatically. And therefore, it also allows you to be able to take the complexity of certain degree of client acquisition costs. It also ends up allowing you to be able to work with customers who may not be willing to pay you a very large amount of money, because your cost to serve is tending towards zero very, very, very quickly. Personalization. Once you start to give somebody personalization, once the person starts to see that this product is designed for me and this is not a product that somebody else can easily give to me, and there is some learning that has happened here, people don't easily change. And I think that personalization would be a key to be able to retain customers in future. And that, again, through technology and data science, is extremely doable stuff, and ubiquitous. So not only can you reach the customer, and not only can you reach the customer anywhere, the point is that you can reach the customer at any point of time, at any place. You can be everywhere for the customer, and the customer is available to you in a variety of ways, and you are available to the customer in a variety of ways. And I would say that again is extremely, extremely powerful. Um, Moving on, this is a place where I'm going to talk a little bit about what kind of has worked for us at Kaleidofin. So the things that we do here typically is that all the products that we offer are designed for our customers. I give the example of Ubharta Sitara. It was designed in a way to say that I don't want to understand about 5 products. Finally, I know that I have a need to be able to send my kid to school. There are things that can happen to me. I, of course, don't want to plan for the fact that if I'm there, if I'm not there. Can you, as an expert, think about all of this and design it for me? Can you make my life simple? So I think that's one thing that we do. The second thing that we try to do is we don't give you so many options that drown you. I remember that ad of Kotak Bank where the person says, "I just asked for a cup of coffee," and I think finance is exactly like that. If you show to a person an interface or something where you have 10,000 mutual funds in different categories like equity, hybrid, debt, short-term debt, ultra short-term debt, treasury, all of that kind of stuff, the customer is just drowned. It's just too much noise out there. Which is a better fund out of these? It's just too complex. Can we actually make sure that the options that are made available to the customer are options that the customer really needs to dabble in? Can we take away all the complexity for the customer? And I think that's something which again simplifies the customer's life and makes the experience far more pleasant. Um, the third thing that we do is we basically, and again, I talked about Varsasara earlier, that rather than selling insurance as a contract, as 3 different contracts, insurance is a feature in everything that we do. And therefore, insurance becomes a promise of the product, that if something were to happen to the customer, then the customer's kid will still go to school, as opposed to saying you have 3 different insurance products. And the last thing, we hate fine prints. I've never liked fine prints personally. And what we've tried to do is, for our product, we've basically said that there are going to be none. So we have nothing to say that if you have a pre-existing health condition, it is not covered, or if something happens to you in this particular condition, you're not covered. Everything that we have done is a no questions asked product, where we've gone to our insurance partners, we've gone to our banking partners to make sure that there is no need for fine products, so fine prints. We end up fighting a lot with our partners we end up taking a lot of their time and bandwidth to be able to design these products. But once you put these four together, it actually makes the customer's experience so much better, that the customer automatically starts to find it easier and easier to engage with you, and the customer finds it harder and harder to leave you because everywhere else they don't find all of this, and that starts to become a kind of a differentiator. I stop here. So that's all that I had for today. I'm looking forward to your questions and very happy to answer any of those that you have.
What an insightful and action packed presentation. I'm pretty sure our curious audience will have several questions for you, Mr. Puneet. So let's open up the floor for the Q&A session. Right. So the first question being, what does the future hold for the wealth tech industry?
Yeah, so Cassandra, I think this question, I tried to answer this through my presentation, and I think this question was asked very much as I started to speak about it. I hope I've been able to shed some light on this. Uh, my own sense really is that this is really the entire. We hold the key to the future here. We can decide to work with the 12,000 high net worth individuals in this country overall, or we can start to say that every single person in this country will need financial planning and wealth management services. We have a very large GDP. We are the fifth largest in the world today. We are going to become third largest very soon. And if we are planning finances at such a large scale for the country, there is no reason why the industry can be small. The industry just has to be very, very, very large.
Right, the next question, the financial industry is undergoing a tech revolution that is changing the way people manage their finances. And what is your views on it, Mr. Puneet?
I totally agree. But I would also still say that this is not the time to say that we've been able to achieve much. I would still say that if you go around, you will find that a very, very large number of users still use their stockbroker. If you look at your parents, they will still go to the bank branch. There is still a lot of work that happens through wealth managers who come to the doorstep in trying to do this. Each one of you, if you were to do a quick poll amongst yourself, you can quickly just look at yourself to say how many of you file your tax returns on your own using a tax site, or do you call a chartered accountant? And I can tell you that I still know that a large majority still ends up going to a chartered accountant. So while there is a lot that is changing, but it is still it is still very, very, very early. When you look at the mutual fund industry sizes, for example, and if you were to look at the total business that entities like, let's say, a Paytm Money or the ET Money, or let's say somebody like Scriptbox does, you'll actually find it's a minuscule proportion of the overall business. And these three are perhaps the largest names in the industry today. So just the sheer volume again that we are doing today of the total size of the market is extremely small. And I think that there is a long way for us to go to be able to make sure that the customers start to move from their current channels that they use to be able to access this, to be able to get to us as fintech players, and we start to get a larger and larger part of the wallet share of customers. We have a good starting point in millennials. We have a good starting point in young people who have never really experienced the physical channels and who most likely are going to start with us on the digital channels. So that's a good starting point. But we need to kind of do a lot more.
So the next question is, according to you, what will be the main drivers of the wealth tech sector in 2023?
Okay, 2023 is not very far. We're actually already sitting on the cusps of 2023. I would say that in the short run, a lot of the work that we will continue to do is just going to be more of what you're seeing already in place. We are finding more and more players coming into creating a seamless interface for our customers. So we are starting to see a lot of entities which are coming into the open banking slash neo banking world. So there is a lot of that which is out there. We are starting to see a new evolution of fintech lending firms, especially with the clarity that RBI has come up with on the digital lending guidelines. So I see in the short run some of those trying to re-evolve through different, slightly different business models. Um, However, in the long run, my big belief is that personalization holds the key. I'm hoping that it takes over faster. I'm hoping that we start to get into understanding the customer so that we are designing for the customer as opposed to using the app as saying that I have one product out there. So, for example, I have a taxation product and everybody just uses my taxation product, or I have a product which is the personal finance engine where you can track your expenses and stuff and you use my product. I think where we need to evolve to is where my product is able to offer a service and that service is personalized. And that really will be a big differentiator.
What do you think are the key elements that can drive success among fintech and wealth tech startups? And also, what is the advice that you would give a wealth tech startup?
Okay, this one I would largely say the biggest thing that any well startup can do well with is to start to think about models to make sure that their initial cost of customer acquisition continues to remain extremely low. And at the same time, it's not only the cost of acquisition. How do you make sure that you built an engagement strategy for the customer? I talked about it earlier during my presentation to say that finance is an indirectly demanded product. There are lots of people who would go to, let's say, an Amazon app just to kind of browse through whatever is available. Even if they're not intending to buy, people can just go out there. During a sale period, people will just want to go and browse for offers. Uh, People will see Instagram videos, shorts, and others, and they can spend hours doing it. A finance app has no such goal at all. So, how do you get and build engagement with the customer? Is there a way in which you can continue to get customers' loyalty without them having a toothbrush moment with an app? And I would say those are the most critical pieces to kind of think about. Customer acquisition, there are ways in kind of looking at partnerships, exciting ways to be able to kind of straddle the physical and the digital world to be able to build scale. Uh, so there are some of those unique opportunities which exist in the country right now. Also, an opportunity to start to think about: is there a way in which the new customer who's gone into the digital world, how can that customer start to work with us? Also starts to kind of hold the key because that's not the customer who everybody is kind of competing for at this point of time. But my big mantra will always be to say that think about customer acquisition strategy and customer engagement in a big way. And if you do not have that figured out, I would say that it's worth getting that right before you start to scale up any of these businesses.
So, this is one of our live streaming questions. So, it says many finance startups are also loss making currently. What do you think? When will this young finance company start generating profits?
So that's a very difficult question to answer, actually, and I wish I had a good answer to that particular question. The key challenges in the industry is kind of comes from the fact that even though we are digital, the cost of acquisition of customers can still be extremely high, and that is corroborated by the fact that most entities end up, if you see the numbers for some of the larger ones as well, you see their income to expense ratios are just absolutely crazy. Uh, and not only that, the need to be able to acquire customer by offering some kind of an incentive becomes very high. And at the second stage, what you find with most apps is that there is practically no revenue that is associated with it. A lot of the services offered are free. Payments by mandate in this country are free. So payments are no longer an easy way to be able to make revenues. There are again many entities which keep coming in, even though the services are free. people keep coming in to still offer that service. So even though there are limited revenues that kind of come from servicing the customer, and I did talk about also the point that customers themselves therefore are not very keen to give revenues. And you combine low revenues and high costs of customer acquisition, and it starts to look like disaster. Uh, but what we have as an exciting situation is that the growth story is very, very impactful, which basically means that we don't have a challenge necessarily of a customer requirement not being met. It's just the fact that have entities created a model for themselves to be able to monetize the entire network that is being built out. And my previous comment again on saying that if you keep your cost of acquisition low, you can actually price your services extremely low. So that in any case then starts to take over. But I don't have a good answer to that question that you asked me. I wish that there was much more clarity on that kind of working out. Uh, it's and again, I will not say that this is an industry problem. Just to kind of, I didn't want to kind of put it out there as a message to say that the finance or fintech industry will not make money. We make money on everything that we do on a variable basis. We make money on every single transaction at this point of time. Um, there are pretty successful entities out there who have been making revenues on the finance side, and it just kind of finally boils down to saying that are we doing enough? Are we thinking through monetization?
So, with regards to wealth tech, how do you feel the new players differentiate themselves as compared to the traditional offerings of incumbent wealth managers?
I think the big differentiator that I am seeing is just the entire user experience. The user experience is indeed really, really seamless when it comes to new wealth players. The ease with which you can make a transaction, the ease with which you can make an investment, the ease with which you can track what you've done in the past. And in some way, this UX over a period of time is also getting supported by a very, very strong data science engine as well, where you also start to see some interesting trends which help you make the most of what you've done. Um, so today, these two, to my mind, are the biggest ways in which there is a differentiation. At the other side of it, where we kind of today are not able to compete a little bit with the traditional channels, and I'm still talking about traditional channels. I'm not talking about other older fintech businesses. Is that the traditional channels work purely on relationship? They know their customers extremely well. So a person who's currently, let's say, acting as a stockbroker for a shopkeeper knows that in which season does the shopkeeper make more money, in which season is the shopkeeper more likely to be able to invest because the shopkeeper is not buying stock, is not loading up on stock, and that kind of understanding of the customer is still sitting with the individuals who are servicing a lot of our customers. And I think, and I know I sound like a broken record, but that's basically the place where if the fintech founders, if the companies were to kind of spend more energy in saying that I want to actually institutionalize a lot of that learning and a lot of that understanding of the customers so that I can actually compete with some of these traditional relationship backed players who do this. I think that will be kind of humongous for the industry.
So, how has wealth tech changed the industry landscape? Do you feel they have brought attention to underserved segments? And also, what are the some of the potential roadblocks ahead that wealth tech companies should prepare for as well?
So, Cassandra, I think this is one of those places where I personally am disappointed because very little has happened to excluded customers. I think we are all largely chasing the same set of customers who are, let's say, very digitally active, who already have bank accounts, who already are salaried, who can do large transaction sizes. So everybody is reaching out to the same customer segment today. Um, and there are very, very few entities which are even focusing on saying that I want to do a lot more with, let's say, the unorganized sector, where with, let's say, the rural populations, with farmers, with different kinds of specialized large groups of people in the country. So not enough is happening in that particular space, but that does represent a very large opportunity set. If people were to kind of think about, this is also a space where there isn't enough competition today. The business models of reaching these customers, given the fact that not everybody is digitally active, adds a little bit of a challenge. But if you were to be able to somehow get there, you know that others will not have a proposition that competes with you as easily. The kind of specialization that you can bring in this particular space is huge. Uh, on the big roadblocks, I would say that I think the one thing all of us realize if we are founders in India is that you just have to kind of plan for saying that there will be roadblocks that will keep coming from somewhere or the other. We have a young regulation which keeps changing, which is still evolving to the digital lending space, the digital transaction space. So I would say that our regulation itself is not clear, and I think it will continue to evolve, and it will continue to throw several roadblocks at us. One of the most interesting things that I keep thinking about is that the biggest promise with which we at Kaleidofin started our business was to say that there is Aadhaar and there is Jan Dhan and there is mobile banking, which is becoming available. And as we set up our business, within 4 months of us setting up our business, the Supreme Court judgment made Aadhaar usage itself very, very difficult. Most entities could not use Aadhaar as easily. So I think those kinds of challenges will happen. But as promoters, I think we are kind of used to saying that these can be addressed. The biggest roadblock that we have in front of us is this entire thing around saying that India does not necessarily have too much capital. Our biggest source of capital still is to be able to go outside of India and try to raise money from different kinds of funds. We don't have very large number of ultra high net worth individuals putting money in startups, and therefore for us we need to in some way manage with small amounts of capital and get to a place where we can start to say that okay, we are ready for the big league and we're ready to take the big equity checks. So building all of what I was trying to say with a small check, to my mind, becomes the biggest roadblock. And to my mind, that also is one of the things because of which nobody wants to go beyond the tried and tested path of going to a customer segment where the segment is well understood, it's a growing segment. Why would you want to take the risk of a segment which is known to be more difficult than this one, especially when capital is deficient? But I can tell you that that could be a very exciting space. That's a space where we work, and it creates its own interesting kind of business dimensions as well as pull for equity investors.
So I think that's about it with the questions, sir. Thank you so much, Mr. Puneet Gupta, for taking your time out and speaking with the Tether community today. On behalf of Tether community, M2P, FinTech, I thank you for being a part of today's panel discussion.
Thank you so much, Glissandra. It was a pleasure being here. And thank you to all the audience. Very excited to be here.
Thank you, sir.